Welcome to the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. Before we dive in, I wanted to note that as a health and wellness coach, I can support you in making sustainable lifestyle changes, tuning into your own wisdom, and building habits that align with your values and vision for your well being. I don't prescribe or treat health conditions, as I'm not a doctor or a mental health professional. Instead, I can walk alongside you as you create a healthier life on your terms. From time to time, I share conversations with guests. The views and opinions expressed by those guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect my views or those of anyone associated with wellness in a chaotic world. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always talk to your doctor or qualified mental health provider about any physical or mental health concerns. This is the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast, a place where we're having conversations about what it really takes to live well in our unhealthy, chaotic world. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. If you're beating yourself up over a bag of chips you ate in a stressed out frenzy, or you can't figure out how anyone manages to find the time to even think about wellness, you're in the right place. We talk about all of these things and more because, frankly, we don't talk to each other enough about what we're really up against every day. Let's change that right now. My guest today is Tiffany Egbert. She is a commercial and fine artist specializing in digital illustration and abstract fluid painting. After many years practicing yoga and meditation, in January of 2024, Tiffany launched a podcast called Stepping Into Your Magic. With her podcast, she aims to bring inspiration and education to fellow artists on ways to use mindfulness practices to level up their creative practice and life. Tiffany's story, as you'll hear, is also about her journey of healing from trauma. You'll hear about the methods she has used and continues to use to heal and process and release stuck emotions, including conscious connected breathwork, yoga nidra meditation, and EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, which is a relatively new form of therapy for treating PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. For anyone who is interested in learning more about these practices and therapies, I've included links in the show notes that dive a little deeper into what they are and how they work. One other fun thing to note is that Tiffany recently moved to Bali. So let's get into it now and hear how she found herself moving to Indonesia. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So your story, I think, is really fascinating. So I just want to jump right in and ask you about your creative background, and also
Mhm.
please tell us how you came to live in Bali.
Yeah, so my background is in both fine art and commercial art. So I've been a graphic designer for almost 2 decades. I also was a fashion photographer for a long time. And then the last decade, I got more into fine art, doing abstract fluid painting. And Bali, I've been living here for about a year and 3 months. So I came in 2019 on kind of my own like eat, pray, love journey. I've been through a very difficult year, and I lost my job, which is actually not the difficult part. But the day I found out I was losing my job, I booked this trip right away because I knew I might not get another window to travel. So I booked the trip the day I found out I was getting laid off. And then I actually had a job offer within 2 weeks. So I actually was able to start the job, but because they had like a flexible time off policy, I was still able to take my trip, like leave for a month and come back to a job. So that was a pretty sweet situation. Um, but I came to Bali to just kind of have like some time to reflect and like cast a vision for what I wanted in this new season of my life. And I was at an artist residency, it was like a very flexible residency. Some artist residencies are like very structured, but this was just kind of like you stay at this Airbnb. There's a bunch of rooms with a bunch of artists, and there's like a collective space in the middle, and you get to create together. So I went to do that, and I ended up very unexpectedly meeting someone, like a romantic someone. And so we spent a lot of time together, but then after like a month, they had to go home and get back into this job. And so we said our goodbyes. And then this is I'll give a warning, it's a bit of a crazy story. And some people are like, it makes them really excited and happy. And some people are like a little bit judgy about it. But so this is the crazy part. So came home, got into my new job, and I ended up finding out I was pregnant. And yeah. So, and I was 34 at the time. And I had been in, before this, I had been in a relationship for over a decade. And there was a lot with that. But he ended up passing away about a year before that. And so I like honestly thought I missed the boat on having kids, even though I was still very young, but like all the things that need to happen before you have a kid, like you date for a while, you finally meet the person, you're together for long enough to get engaged and married, and then long enough to like say, okay, yeah, we want to have kids. And then that whole process. And I had a lot of friends who were trying to get pregnant who are around my age or even younger and were having difficulty. So I just thought like it was something I always wanted, but I thought I missed the boat. So found out I was pregnant, but it was a very just like strange situation. Like, I mean, I had, I really cared about this person that I had met, but we had literally been together for like less than a month. So, so I knew pretty quickly, like I wanted to have the baby for sure. And I didn't know, like, am I going to be doing this by myself or not? But either way, I wanted to have her. I knew it. So what ended up happening was he tried to come to the US. He's Indonesian. So he's from here, and he couldn't get a visa because it's very difficult. We basically would have had to get married, and that whole process, it's like the whole, if you've seen that show 90 Day Fiance, there's like a whole process, and it takes like a year basically. So, and I was pregnant, and we were like, we don't have a year, so maybe I'll come with the baby after she's born. And so that was a plan, to come when she was like 6 months old. And then she was born in February of 2020. And literally a couple weeks after she was born, that's when the pandemic started and everything shut down. Travel was not possible. There was a lot of regulations to get in and out of Indonesia for a while. You had to be vaccinated, which, for her age, the vaccines weren't available for a very long time. So we had to wait, until she was 2.5 to come out here. Yeah. So, and we had kept in contact. We were talking this entire time. And at different points, we had to accept, like, this is literally impossible for us to be together. And I had to kind of let go of the idea, but was still like, I couldn't stop thinking about what if things could work between us. And so when it was finally an option, we decided, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to try it. We're going to try to be together as a family and just see how it goes. And so that was a year and 3 months ago. And it was definitely at first an adjustment for everyone. It was such a big life change for everyone. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been over a year now. So things are feeling pretty good right now, and definitely more settled in than I was a year ago. And yeah, so that's the strange and interesting reason why I now live in Indonesia.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were first thinking about visiting,
Yeah.
were there like what called you to this place?
Oh, that's such a good question. I had been there in like around the time I turned 30, so like a few years before. And it was just a very special place. Before I came the first time, it wasn't even on my list of places to travel. I was just kind of wanting to go somewhere different for my birthday, my 30th birthday. And I was thinking like somewhere in Europe. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to look on Airbnb and see if anything pops out. And there was this little tiny, basically like a little tiny wooden house um, in the middle of these beautiful rice fields in Ubud, Bali. And it just looked so peaceful. And I just couldn't get it out of my head, this place. But I ended up checking just airline tickets, and the flight was over 24 hours. And I only had so much PTO, paid time off at the time. I could only take like 9 or 10 days off. I can't remember. So I was like, oh, I can't do that. That's like a lot of traveling for a short trip. So I was like trying to forget about it. but I couldn't forget about it. And I had a few coincidences with a few different artists who also stayed there, and which was just very random because it's like, it's not a hotel, it's not a resort, it's like this one little tiny house. And I ended up just deciding, like, I can't stop thinking about this, I just need to go. And so so I went, and I had just like a beautiful magical time. I had just gotten into yoga around that time, and this place Ubud is like a huge yoga town. There's some like really, like, in my opinion, some of the best yoga studios in the world, but I haven't really traveled many other places and checked out many other yoga studios, but like really, it's really known for um a place where people come to heal. Like if you've seen Eat, Pray, Love, that's where one of the places where Elizabeth Gilbert came after her divorce. And I think Ubud actually means, it might mean healing or something like that. I can't remember. But it has like a very special energy here. And I am originally from Arizona, and people say that Sedona has like this, it's like the vortex, and it has a special energy. And I've never, like, it's beautiful to me, but I've never quite felt that. But something about here, there's something going on. It's also called the Island of the Gods. Um, and people are very spiritual, and a lot of people have the same experience of like basically suddenly booking a trip and not knowing why they booked a trip, and then end up living here, and just the island just like sucks them in. So that was my experience the first time coming, and then I just knew I wanted to come back. And I had been working for a company and got this opportunity to go work for the startup, and it seemed like, I knew it was a risk, but it was like too good of an opportunity to say no to. So originally I was going to go in between those two jobs, but it just was so last minute. Um, the hiring process, I didn't end up going then. But then when I got laid off, when the company kind of shut down after like 8 or 9 months, I was like, okay, I have to go now and take the opportunity. So yeah, it was one of those weird things because it felt like a little bit impulsive, even though I had been thinking about it for years. But like the moment I booked it, it was kind of impulsive. But it was like, if I hadn't have gone then, I wouldn't have the life I do now. So it was kind of meant to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us about your artistic background. That seems to like flow through your life, right?
Yeah. So I went to school for graphic design. And so that was quite a while ago. I graduated like a year before the the last recessions. I'm like, there's been another recession since then, it seems like. Um, so yeah, but I've been doing design work for a very long time. I love it. I kind of focus on editorial design right now and illustration. And then I, at some point, so I always had fashion photography as like my second thing that I did because I needed something like outside of my job to be a creative outlet, even though my job was very creative. Um, but at some point, I was getting really bad migraines, and I realized like all the screen time isn't helping. Like I was working, 8 hours a day on a computer at my design job. And then I would come home and edit photos, and it just was not sustainable. I did that for years. And so at that point, I decided like I need to find something that's not on a computer to do creatively. That's just like for fun, just for me. And so I ended up, there was just like randomly a weaving class at a local little boutique, like a fiber arts class. And I took that, and I like made this like beautiful tapestry at the end of the class. And I was like so surprised by it because I wasn't used to making things with my hands. I was really intimidated by it actually. I think I had some kind of like mental blocks on like, I'm not good at making things with my hands. I need to stick to computers. So I was just kind of surprised and got like a bit obsessed with making these like little weavings. And then I got pretty into macrame, which is another form of fiber arts where you like tie a bunch of knots. And I went down that path for a while, got into shibori fabric dyeing. And then eventually I found fluid painting, which is like the main thing I do now, which is, there's a few different styles, but the style I got into the first time was with resin and acrylic paint. And you basically pour the mix of paint and resin on a canvas, and then you move the canvas around with your hands. So it's the resin, in about 45 minutes, it starts to harden. So you don't have a lot of time. So you really can't overthink about it. Like, you can think about your colors and you can mix them beforehand. You can think about like the canvas you're going to use, but when you're in it, you're just like, you have to be in it. And it's like very much especially when I kind of learned the process a little bit more, like I knew what I was doing, it became like a form of meditation for me, just a way of just letting go of control. And like eventually the more you do it, the more you can control the medium. But still, there's always some surprises. So yeah, that's a little bit of my creative background.
That's very interesting. Yeah, like the arts, it just kind of flows through your life, right? You just have to have
Yeah.
something. I find that too. Like I studied photography on my own, just kind of took a course, um, just amateur photography, because I needed some sort of outlet that was separate from my job as a writer. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. So let me ask you about meditation and yoga
Mhm.
and how you got into that.
Yeah. So I got into yoga initially, maybe like almost 8 or 9 years ago. And initially it was just I needed something to do to exercise. And I had tried a few different things. I had never really, I think I had been like pretty active. And then I started working in my 20s at some point, like a full time desk job doing design work, but I was sitting all day and I was like having really bad knee pain, and also like waking up and like my hips would be like disjointed, and like I felt like I was a 6-year-old woman or something. Like, it wasn't normal, but I just wasn't moving my body enough. And so I just kind of put it out to some friends. I think I made a Facebook post and was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do you have anything you suggest, any classes or any gyms? And a few people gave different suggestions, and I was working with a friend who was doing personal training for a little bit. And then at the same time, I tried yoga at this yoga studio in Phoenix, and I really fell in love with yoga. So initially, it was just like, I just need to get exercise. I need to move my body. But the longer I did yoga, I realized, wow, there's a lot more here than just exercise. There's so much here for my mind, so much here for my spirit. And so I was very into like going to sound healings. And then after my former partner passed away, my I basically completely stopped sleeping for a period of time. And so I tried like everything except for sleeping pills. I was like way too nervous to do that. But my immune system was getting destroyed. Like, I couldn't drive because it wasn't safe and I had to do something. So I was trying all these different things. And the two things that I found that worked were EMDR therapy and then yoga nidra meditation. And so I did the EMDR for like maybe a year, but then my therapist moved, and so I was like, I'm okay now, even though I wasn't. But the yoga nidra was something I could do like easily at the yoga studio, and it had like almost as strong of benefits for me as far as like the sleep stuff went. So yeah, I initially used it to get better sleep or to start sleeping again, and then I started noticing like situations where like things would be difficult, but somehow I'd feel like very at peace. Like, what is going on? Like, why do I feel okay right now? And I realized it was part of the reason was because of the yoga nidra. And every time you do a yoga nidra meditation, you usually set an intention, and you can choose it yourself. It's a form of guided meditation. Um, so sometimes they kind of give you an intention, but most of the time you can set your own intention. And so peace was something for me that like it was so hard to access for so long. But that's an intention I worked with in yoga nidra, and I started to actually see it manifest in my life, just by doing those meditations, which basically you just like get super comfortable. You're like usually laying on the ground. You don't have to do anything except for relax. And the teacher basically meditates you. So you don't have to like clear your mind. It's not stressful. I think some people with like busy minds I mean, everyone has always, there's thoughts in all of our minds, but a lot of people get intimidated by meditation because they think they have to clear their mind, and maybe they get anxious about that. But this form of meditation is just, you just get so relaxed. You don't have time to worry about all that. Um, and it has really big results, I think. And I guess it's because it's kind of like similar to hypnosis in the way, like your brain state. Um, I don't know enough about the science, but yeah, it works. It's very powerful.
So yeah, so it is different because it's called yoga nidra, and most people think of yoga as the
Yeah.
physical aspect, right? They think,
Yeah.
take a yoga class and you're moving your body in different ways, but it's actually it's a mind thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I went to a yoga nidra class was when I had just started doing yoga, and they didn't really give an explanation. They just assumed everyone knew what they were getting into. I thought it was just going to be like a gentle yoga class. And she had us lay down at the beginning, and I was like getting really relaxed, but then I was getting anxious because I was afraid I was going to fall asleep. And I didn't know that we were going to be like laying down the entire time and not moving. So yeah, it's a form of guided meditation.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you've mentioned is breath work. How does
Yeah.
that play into your health and wellness?
Yeah. So I just got into breath work a little bit over a year ago. And I'd been in the yoga world for a while, but I had never seen breath work in Phoenix for sure. And so I moved here, and then within like a month, I had like literally 10 people in 1 week mention it. And then I was like, oh, like I started paying attention, like, what is this? I thought it was just kind of the same as meditation, but it's like a whole category of its own. And basically, the kind that I have been doing is conscious connected breath work, which is usually when you breathe in, and there's a pause, and then you breathe out and there's a pause. But the conscious connected breath work, you take out that pause, and it's kind of similar to the yoga nidra. You go into like a very deep state of relaxation, and there's different styles. The first style I tried was a more intense style. I think it was maybe like you're breathing in and out through your mouth, and it was just like that style. There's like a huge emotional release, and there were people in the class like screaming and crying and punching pillows and laughing hysterically, and like it can be very intense. But the style that I practice mostly now is more like rebirthing breath work, which is it's usually a lot gentler, and you can still get the same type of emotional release. You can still process past trauma, um, but it's not as intense as those other styles. So for me, I kind of got hooked because I think I had just moved here, and it was like we had been planning it for so long, and it's like what we wanted, but it was a lot of change all at once for everyone. And so it was a lot on my nervous system. And so I was feeling like very reactive. Like hadn't, I don't think I had expressed anger or felt anger in like a decade. And then all of a sudden, I was just like very reactive and like angry all the time, or just like really little things would kind of set me off. And so the first time I did this breath work, I was able to process a lot of that stuck emotion and get it out of my system. And I could see like a really big difference when I came home, like not being so reactive. So I was like, what is this? I want to keep doing it and see what happens. So yeah, and just things with my past. I think at a certain point during the pandemic, I like got back into therapy after not doing it for years because I was getting kind of anxious about being in this new relationship here and all this change. And because things in my last relationship were like so chaotic and ended very traumatically, I was like, I don't know if I can be in a normal relationship. I wasn't sure. And the therapist was like, so I wanted to talk about these things from the past, but she was like, well, if it's not bothering you now, like maybe we shouldn't talk about it. I think her intention was she didn't want to re-traumatize me, which I get. But I think the breath work, it's like all the stuff that was still kind of like stuck in my system, I've been able to get out. in a way that like I couldn't in like talk therapy maybe. So it's yeah, it's really powerful. And now I'm more in a phase when I do sessions. Sometimes I still process the stuck emotion and the trauma, but now it's more about getting inspiration and clarity. And I've had a lot of like creative inspiration come through when I do breathwork sessions. So it can be so many different things, but it's really powerful.
Yeah. So that kind of ties into your podcast too.
Yeah.
So tell us about that and what you want, or what you're hoping people will take away from your podcast.
Yeah. So I just launched my podcast like a week ago on January 1st. And it's something I've been wanting to do for years. And I was kind of stuck. I originally had a different idea. And then we were in the same podcasting course. And within the first week, I realized like, oh, the reason I can't move forward is because I don't want to talk about that stuff anymore. And I really want to talk to creatives and artists and meditation teachers. And I'm basically trying to bring my two worlds together, my creative world and then my yoga world and my mindfulness world. And I've been like unsure, like, is this going to be cohesive? Are people going to get it? I'm not sure. But basically, I'm talking to half of it's talking to different types of creatives and kind of getting their stories to kind of expand people on what's possible for a creative life. And then the other half of it is interviewing meditation teachers, breathwork facilitators, um, and different mindfulness coaches and things like that, kind of helping give people tools, mindfulness practices, embodiment practices that they can use in their life that could potentially help their creative practice, but also could just improve their life. So that's the basic idea.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, I think, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but the mindfulness practices are very helpful for getting into that state of flow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I think one of my goals is to create guided meditations for people to get unstuck and get unblocked. And I think a lot of the practices, not only meditation, but like there's a lot of practices and kundalini and breath work and about moving stuck energy and getting you moving and getting into that flow state. So I think the two things are very connected. Um, and yeah, I'm just trying to help connect the dots for people and show them like, hey, maybe you should try this thing. Maybe it'll help you in what you're trying to do or what you're wanting to create.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I love it. I,
Yeah.
I listened
Yeah.
the other day too, and you had like a special episode where you were talking about core values.
Yeah.
Um, is that like a regular practice that you do, and how has that helped you?
Yeah. So core values, it's something I've been doing for years. I get very into this time of year is my favorite time of year in January. And I really enjoy like looking at the past year and reflecting and kind of casting vision on what I want for the future. And so finding out what my core values are have been really, really helpful in making goals that are like really aligned with my purpose and who I am. Because sometimes I think for years it was just like you have like default goals or like things that it's like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to eat healthier. I want to exercise more. I want to do these. I want to make this amount of money. Like those type of goals. But this is like when you know what your core values are, you can get much deeper. And for me, because my life now is it's a lot more flexible than it's ever been because I don't have a 9 to 5 job anymore for the first time. And so I knew I really needed to like very carefully organize my schedule. And so basically one of the things I did when I moved here was figure out what my core values were for this season in my life. And the values I chose initially were one of them, a big one was adventure, which is something that like I never really prioritized before, but to me when I'm like out in nature, I get so inspired and I'm so much happier. And so I realized, and being here in Bali, I'm like, I have to take advantage of being here. So I want to like, do all these things. So that was really important to me. Community was another value because I needed to make friends and have a community and make connection. Um, and creativity is always a value for me. So basically, every single week, the way I organize my schedule, I tried like a lot of different productivity apps, but the way that works best for me is just my notes app on my phone. And at the beginning of every week, I have like my core values on top. So I can like kind of filter everything I'm doing through those values. And like if it's something that like I'm not really sure about and it doesn't align with my values, then I can easily say no. Or I like maybe have like a little free space one day and I'm like, what could I do with that time that really aligns with my values? Like I'm going to go on a little waterfall adventure, or I'm going to take a ceramics class, or I'm going to get lunch with a friend or something like that. So for me, it just helps make everything really clear when I know what I want to prioritize the most.
That's interesting because you use it weekly.
I have like goal or values that are for the whole year, but then I like always have it at the top of my mind. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, because I think a lot of people have heard the idea of like, what are your core values and know them, but they don't necessarily implement them all the
Yeah.
time, right? They think about it
Yeah.
once a year and then it goes away. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Um, Probably the key to using them right.
Yeah.
Um, so where can people find your podcast and more about you?
Yeah. So I have my podcast website is steppingintoyourmagic.com. And there's links on there for the both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then I have some episodes that are video episodes, and I'm hosting those on YouTube right now. So there's that as well. And then I still have my commercial creative work online. I took my fine art website down because I just had too many websites. But my commercial art, design, photography, all that stuff is tiffanyegbert.com. And then I have both of those Instagram accounts. So at Stepping Into Your Magic and at Tiffany Egbert. And on my Instagram account, you can see some of my artwork. So it's still online there.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you
Yeah.
for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you for getting up at 5 a.m. or probably earlier than 5 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Hey there, it's Cheryl. I'm jumping in here to quickly talk to you about food, stress eating, and plain old overeating. I spent years reading tips and tricks from reputable sources, but nothing seemed to stick. There was a time when I thought the endless cycle of stress induced cravings for sugar and crunchy snacks would never end. But when I broke down all of the advice I was hearing into three essential categories, I ended up building myself a system. It helped me remember how to handle each of my more difficult moments with food. And if you're interested, I'd like you to have it for free. There's a link in the show notes where you can opt in to receive my quick start guide called Escape the Emotional Eating Maze: 3 Keys that Unlock the Path to a Mindful Relationship with Food. If this resonates with you, please don't waste another minute of your life feeling like you're out of control when it comes to your food. Download the guide today and let's navigate this path to a healthier, happier you together. To wrap up today's episode, I just want to let you know a few of the things that I took from today's conversation. Number one, saying yes to things that continue to call to you can take you down unexpected paths that bring you to where you truly want to be. Number two, full-time desk work is not what our bodies are made for. If you have the typical 9 to 5 job that requires a lot of sitting and screen time, you will likely eventually need intervention from a physical therapist the way I did, or you can take things into your own hands now and integrate healthy movement into your life. Things like yoga, or honestly, anything that you love to do. Number three, don't be afraid to try different forms of therapy or mindfulness practices if you think they might benefit you. Number four, well, this one's actually a question. The conversation I had today with Tiffany made me wonder, what can happen when we push through mental blocks and limiting beliefs that we have about our own abilities? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to check out today's show notes if you want to take a deeper dive into any of the practices that we talked about today. You can also find more about this episode and other episodes on the website at wellnessinachaoticworld.com. Or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, where we can chat more about living well in our stressed out, chaotic world.
And as always, I hope you have a healthy, happy week.
If today's episode resonated with you, our private Facebook group is a great place to dive deeper, ask questions, and share wins with people who understand. It's free, it's private, and you can join by clicking the link in the episode description. I hope to see you there.